Let's begin with the Madaraka Day celebrations yesterday, and I'd like your perspective in the president's speech. Did you watch the president? Were you in Kisumu?
No, I wasn't in Kisumu, but I watched the president. Okay. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for inviting me, and thank you for having me.
Karibu.
Yesterday was a very interesting speech by the president. A president who was torn between explaining the success of his government for the last 8 years, okay. Or let's say now we're 8 years old. Actually, we're just past 8 years. You would see the president was trying to summarize the legacy, the achievements of his government, but also struggling to explain why we have not been able to achieve the Big Four agenda.
Okay.
And I think the president, in his 4 points that he shared yesterday, was struggling to explain why in the last 4 years we've not been able to achieve the Big Four agenda. And so you saw the president retreat back to 2013 and the things we did in the first term, and ably explain the infrastructure projects, the electricity, the infrastructure for the medical, including the purchase for medical equipment.
Okay.
These are things that we did in the first 5 years of Jubilee administration.
Okay.
In fact, I dare say that most of the projects that the president went to open in Nyanza was basically projects that we did in the last 5 years.
But why were you?
First 5 years.
Why do you think he was struggling?
He was struggling because with the situation of the BBI at the moment, okay. Remember the government has done the major achievement or project that this government has done in the second term has been BBI.
Okay.
Yeah, and completing the projects we started in the first term.
Okay.
The Big Four agenda, which was majorly supposed to build on the infrastructure and the foundation we laid in the first term, was not achieved. Why? Okay. Because a lot of resources and government time was spent in politics of BBI, politics of fight within our own party, Jubilee, all these things of... I can say there are two things that the president tried to achieve in the second term. One was to achieve the BBI, okay. And two, to bring down, try to bring down his deputy president. And 4 years down the line, he has neither achieved the BBI nor has he achieved in trying to bring down his deputy. So the speech of the president, if you listen very carefully, it was the same speech in December. It was almost the same speech June last year. The same, a few sentences here and there being changed. But something which was even more pronounced in the president's speech is the language and the diction that the president used is famously attributed to his new advisor now, who is Mutai Ngunyi, whom we are told he works from the State House now. And you would see that language of Mutai Ngunyi, which is very divisive, very arrogant, very dismissive of other institutions. And unfortunately, something that really shocked me is how the president attacked the judiciary on the face of it.
I'm going to talk about that.
And in the presence of the new Chief Justice.
Okay.
First, it's not just the contempt of the judiciary itself, but the real contempt on the face of the Chief Justice, a lady who has earned a place in the judicial structure of this country to be the president of the Supreme Court and the Chief Justice, who all of us expected after our interview and our appointment that it was going to change the relationship between the executive. It felt
as though the president was attacking the Chief Justice.
Was attacking the judiciary in the presence of the president of the Supreme Court and the Chief Justice, okay. Meaning he had a very little regard for the Chief Justice. And I got a little bit shocked because the president went on a long drive to explain why the judiciary has tested the limits of patience for this country. Okay. But in reality, the president was saying he has tested his patience as a person. What I was looking for, and I even posted on my Twitter account, I was looking for the reaction of James Orengo, Tiendo Molo, Raila Odinga, Junaid Mohammed, because in essence, when the president said that the Supreme Court should not have nullified his elections, yeah, and that it was a waste of public resources, and that that burden must be borne by the judiciary. In essence, he was not just attacking the judiciary. He was actually telling Raila Odinga and his team that it was a waste of time that you sought and succeeded in nullifying his elections in 2017, which is a paradox because this statement is being made in the stronghold of the former Prime Minister. It's being made in the presence of the former Prime Minister and all his lawyers, the lead lawyers. And I think
what if I said, Senator, it's your interpretation, because it could have been interpreted in another way, because you've only picked the nullification of the election, but not picked the BBI, because he put both in context.
No, it started with that the judiciary tested the limits
of our constitution. Yes, by those two acts.
By two acts.
Yes.
One, by nullifying the election. But he went ahead and said that who will bear the cost?
As a question.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Who will bear the cost for nullification of the 2017 elections?
I think it's you're completely taking it out of context. No, perhaps I'm the one who's not understanding.
I suppose, Senator, because, Ken, I listened, I read, I also analyzed. What the president was trying to say is that the judiciary wasted public resources by nullifying his elections in 2017, and the same judiciary is wasting public resources by nullifying a 4-year program called BBI. Who will carry that burden? And when the president says that, it is an insult on the part of the people of Kenya.
Actually, use the word attempted, because perhaps he still sees light at the end of the tunnel with this.
I'll come to that. The real point I'm getting to there is that the president, first of all, because you're asking me about the speech generally before we talk about the judiciary itself,
yes.
The president spent the time yesterday to prepare ground for the appeal of the BBI.
Okay.
And the best way to go about it was to find language that he was going to use to attack the judiciary. I agree with all who have said that if there's anything the president should do in public interest is to fire his speechwriter, and we all know who he was.
Okay.
And I personally believe that it was not presidential in terms of how the president had addressed the judiciary.
Okay.
It wasn't presidential. It did not bring honor to the office of the president.
Okay.
It does not promote public confidence on the office of the president. It does not also establish a good legacy for the president, who only has 12 months to leave office, 12 to 13 months to leave office, for him to leave behind a legacy of continuous fight with the judiciary.
All right. I think it's time to release KTN home. Is that right? Yes. So if you want to continue the discussion right here with Kipchumba Murkomen, perhaps it's now time to tune to KTN News, because this discussion continues in a second. All right. Let me now talk